Tonight, Andy and Donna Ciccotelli, club members, are going to be giving a presentation on a wonderful journey and experience that they took part in, hiking the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu in Peru. And so, without any further additions, I want you to give a very warm welcome to Andy and to Donna, and to hiking the Inca Trail.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for being here. My name is Andy, and this is Donna. In May of 2011, Donna and I, and friends Kathy and Steve, their son Brian, and two others, went on a vacation to Peru to hike the Inca Trail to the mountain called Machu Picchu and the lost city there. Kathy had talked to Donna about the trip she was planning with Steve and asked if we would be interested in joining them. Coincidentally, I had recently read the book The Celestine Prophecy, which had its setting in Peru and used coincidences as part of the author's subject matter. This, along with me taking early retirement, and now having the time to go do this trek, helped make our decision to go. The section of the Inca Trail that we were hiking was 26 miles long and would take 4 days to complete. We would spend 3 days, 3 nights camping in the Andes Mountains. We prepared for the hike by walking our local bike trail and getting the required vaccinations to stay healthy in Peru. We were also prescribed medication to prevent altitude sickness. For almost 5 months, from February to May, we walked 5 to 6 miles most days, and by May felt we were ready. One of us was not as ready as the other. Now on to Peru. We flew from New York to Lima, Peru, and from Lima to Cusco. Cusco was the ancient capital of the Incan Empire. The flight from Lima to Cusco is 354 miles and took an hour and 45 minutes, mostly passing over the Andes Mountains. Our first look at Machu Picchu was the mural at the airport, shown here. We couldn't wait to see the real thing. To get acclimated to the high altitude of the Andes, we planned our vacation to spend 3 days in Cusco before we started the Inca Trail hike. Cusco's elevation is 11,152 feet above sea level. For comparison, Blackwood, New Jersey, where we live, is 46 feet above sea level. We had a comfortable stay at the Rumi Punku Hotel in Cusco. It is a beautiful modern hotel in the heart of Cusco with an open-air indoor courtyard. On many of the roofs of the houses in Cusco are clay bowls. They are the Toritos of Pucara. They represent prosperity, happiness, and fertility. They are also protecting the welfare and good luck of the families that live in them. The roads and pathway in Cusco are cobbled and are used by people and cars. Quechan women dressed in traditional clothing posed for us for a fee as we walked around the city. The Quechan are the Aboriginal people, South American Indians, who live in the Andean highlands from Ecuador to Bolivia. They speak regional varieties of Quechua, which was the language of the Inca Empire. Some of the things we saw as we walked. In the town, we ate at open-air restaurants, being careful to not drink the water, and explored the architecture of the city. They have a number of churches. On our second day in Cusco, we prepared for the upcoming trek by hiking up the Cusco Hills to the ruins of Sasayuman. Sasayuman is one of the most impressive Inca temples in the Cusco city and one of the most beautiful places of Peru. It is located in the northern zone of Cusco, 1¼ miles from the city. High on the hill, the Cristo Blanco monument is located just a few steps from the entrance door to the archaeological site of Sacsayhuaman. Geographically, it is located 11,730 feet above sea level. Sort of reminiscent of the Christ in Brazil, I think. In addition to the clay bowls found on rooftops, many people let their pet dogs lie on the roof also. There are many churches in Cusco. 75% of Peruvians are Catholic and is often confined with Andean mythology. Many Incan ceremonies are still performed, and many Catholic rituals and their expressions bear remnants of the cult of the sun god Inti, and reverence for the Pachamama, which is Mother Earth, and other elements of nature. We took in many views of the city. We ate dinner at this restaurant that was owned by an Australian who settled there with his native Peruvian wife. He also told us about Australian football while we were there. On May 14th, we began our 4-day trek of the Inca Trail. This is a map of our trek along the Inca Trail. You can see the ups and downs of the trail as we walk. The porters get our gear ready for the hike. This is what I carried for the trail. After posing under the trail sign, we began our journey on the bridge that was over the river Urubamba. That is our tour guide, Carlos. This is where our trek began. Today is hot and sunny, and the terrain is dry and dusty for the beginning of the trek. It goes slowly uphill, but there are lots of level sections of the trail that wind around the mountains. We stop and take pictures of flowers along the trail. And there's bridges. This is our last rest stop of the first day.
I was thinking how I could write and walk at the same time, and I forgot my camera is also a sound recorder. It's May 14th, about 1:25 Peruvian time. I see Donna coming up on the first leg of our trip to Mount Machu Picchu. We are, of course, in the back. So we are taking our time and letting her rest, and then when she catches up to me, I go further. The rest of the group is about half a mile ahead of us. So we see some nice sights. We crossed a bridge, and so far it's a pretty nice day. Carlos is our guide. We're with Kathy, Steve, Brian, Miriam, and Gerard, and a bunch of porters.
These are some of the scenes that we came across on our first day. We stop at many rooms that we see along the trail. I don't know all the names of the ruins, but there are many books about it. Machu Picchu, Inca Trail. The views of the snow-covered mountains are spectacular. One of the snow-covered ones is called the Wenonah Mountain. That's what our guide told us it was, and we looked it up. At the end of our first day, our sleeping tents are set up by the porters. We have dinner in the dining tent. As the sun sets, it gets a lot colder. And I remember that we put on coats, hats, and gloves. The altitude of our campsite is around 10,000 feet. Our first day of exploring the ruins and viewing the scenery went well. We were greeted very early this morning by a porter outside our tent offering us hot tea. This is tea made from cocoa leaves that is supposed to prevent altitude sickness. We are also given small bags of cocoa leaves to chew on. On the second morning of the trek, Donna and I leave an hour earlier than everyone else. This is because, even with all the training, Donna's a little slower than the rest of the group. And the guide doesn't want the group to get too separated. I recorded me talking as I was walking there from time to time, as you heard before.
Second day, Donna's walking up the mountain from our campsite. We have to leave at 6 o'clock because we're slower than everybody else. They're leaving at 7:30. We're trying not to be voted off the island, but we're doing okay. Turns out to be, they say no schedules, but they seem to worry about you getting there before dark for some reason. I don't know. It's fun. A lot of nice scenery. Beautiful place.
You have to realize we were like, we were 58 back then, so we were like one of the older people of the trek, so that's why we're always behind everybody. The trail is mostly uphill, but sometimes we cross small bridges over small creeks. There are flowers everywhere, and Donna has to stop and take pictures of every one.
11:05. Still on the trail, almost to the top, where we're going to have lunch. Brian and the porters have passed us. Brian said he didn't take any breaks since he left. And we're still waiting for the others to catch up. And I'm waiting for Donna to catch up. Now, I'm almost at the top. She still has a bunch of rock steps to climb. Still a nice day. Porters are walking with their bags on.
Each time we stop for lunch, the porters have set up dining tents and our meals are ready before we arrive. At lunch, Carlos, who is our trek guide, introduces our 12 porters and explains how hard they work. They carry our camping equipment, clothing, and the extra provisions. They work hard setting up our campsites and assisting us when needed.
But seeing as they carry a lot of stuff, here in our lunch spots or campsites, these people still work in different responsibilities. So some of them could be cleaning potatoes, some others are watching over stuff, and there is a waiter, there is a guy always with a paper towel, or some others are just washing dishes. You see, that is
Our second day was a harder climb than day one as we hiked up to Dead Woman's Pass. Our pictures don't show it, but the pass has a profile of a woman laying on her back, hence the name. It was amazing walking through all that too. That was another group that was behind us, I believe. Our group was only 7 people, so you can tell that was a different group. And people would hike behind us and in front of us. And we came across some llamas, just grazing. And the flowers were there for Donna to take pictures of. The elevation of the Dead Woman's Pass is 13,780 feet above sea level. This is the highest point of the trek. The guide carries oxygen in case the hikers have any trouble breathing at this altitude. And we weren't allowed to spend a lot of time here. Donna, Carlos, and I were the last of our group, and any other tour groups, to reach Dead Woman's Pass. We posed for pictures, and then it's downhill to our next campsite. There are thousands of downhill steps that take hours to walk down, and when the sun sets, it is totally dark. You use headlamps to see the steps. You can see some of the tents set up. Very early morning of our 3rd day, I went with Carlos to see the sunrise in the mountains near our campsite. We appeared to be camping on the clouds. It was magical. Donna and I started the hike early again. We walked in the early morning mist. That's our campsite.
Andy, did somebody go with you, or did they just
We-
say to go up this
Up
trail?
1/4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We walked in the early morning mist, crossing bridges, saw the flowers and vegetation. We wouldn't think we were up in the mountain. I'm not sure what that is. I read lost. They're like some kind of orchids. That we believe may have been a cinnamon flycatcher. Some of the birds that were, on the Inca Trail. We didn't see many birds or many animals. Here we are walking through the mist and through tunnels that were carved out into steps. You never knew where we were going to wind up. We loved our walking sticks. Oh, we were having a little trouble. We were one of the first to make it to Rukurake. This was a ruin that was probably a resting place for the early runners to the Inca Trail. You can feel a little bit like you're there. And these are some of the lakes we passed by. Some more flowers and vegetation. This is a nature club, maybe you can identify what these flowers are. And it was May, so these are in bloom. Each time we stopped for lunch or dinner, the porters were careful about our sanitation. And we were given clean water to wash and paper towels to dry our hands. It was like, porters, at their dinner and our dinner. They were very friendly too.
It looks cold.
It got cold in spots, but when the sun was out, it wasn't too bad.
What did you eat when you were on the trip?
Well, they provided the food.
What was it?
I wish I could remember what we ate, but
A lot of potatoes.
a lot of
A lot
potatoes.
of potatoes.
Protein.
And we were definitely had to stay away from the water, so we had to, sanitize our water with iodine pills and things like that. Because if not, you felt it. I was one of the lucky ones. I didn't get sick until the very end.
Warm enough at night?
I'm sorry?
Were you warm enough at night?
Yeah, we stayed warm. I mean, you know how we camp, and we had enough warm clothes, and we were in a tent. And we didn't go too far out of the tent. So we walked some more steps and crossed more bridges, and went through some more ruins.
Tell us
We
the
did-
way.
I'm sorry?
Just tell us the way.
Yeah, and we're on our way. We crossed to a third-day campsite, which is Wenonah. You'll see the sign for that in a few more slides. And these are all done, by, there's no mortar or anything. They just put these stones together and made these ruins as they climb the Inca Trail. There's some views of the mountains, vegetation. Donna hiding from the camera. She loved going down these steps. Not really. I think she glued those poles to her hands. And some of the bridges were questionable. We were pretty high up. And you'll see like the power lines going through, so there is some civilization there. And here we are at Wenonah, it's our third-day campsite. Now before we start off on the last day of the trek, we say goodbye to our porters, because our next stop will be Machu Picchu. We hiked to the ruins called Wenonah, where we met a few llamas. You see them there, there. I'm videoing it, I think.
Right, you're okay.
That's good. This part of the trail was more tropical, and we saw lots of orchid-like flowers and lichen. We passed through some more scenery, and bridges, flowers. Donna likes to take pictures of flowers, as I said before. That's better than just looking at just mountains. And then we went through the trail, we passed through some more ruins. It's funny how everywhere you look, you saw something different. And there's the civilization with the power lines. I know one of these bridges may have been created due to a collapse of the mountain. I'm not sure which one. Now, right before arriving at the city, we had to climb up 30 nearly vertical and scary steps to get to the Sun Gate entrance to Machu Picchu. Those steps we don't really see on this video, but they were in these slides. I believe this is where it is, but they look steeper than what it was. And then we arrived at the Sun Gate, which is the entrance, and it's called Intipunku. After posing for pictures with Machu Picchu in the background, we were able to walk down to the city and walk around for a little while. It was late afternoon and most people had already left for the day, so it was nice to see what Machu Picchu was like without all the other tourists. After the Sun Gate. Go down, yeah. Donna has this fear of heights, but she did pretty good going down. That's the mountain, Machu Picchu. The city doesn't have a name.
Was this on your bucket list? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out. It's like a rough trail.
No, like I said in the beginning, it was just a series of coincidences, and we just decided to do it.
Hey, Andy, do you know why the people decided to live 13,000 feet up in the mountains? I mean,
There's theories about why. I would suggest reading about it because it could be like an estate of somebody that went to flee the Spaniards. It could be some kind of like thing set aside for like missionaries or some kind of like thing like that. But, you know, I didn't want to make this into a history lesson.
yeah, sure. It just seems like
these are things that
kind
I
of a
found
place
as
to
I
want
went
to live.
along.
You know,
Now this is Wenonah Picchu, which is means small mountain. Machu Picchu means big mountain, big or old mountain, I know that much. Wenonah Picchu is another one that you can see from there. And you can also climb that one if you have the time. It was amazing when you think of it. And all these roofs had thatched roofs on it at the time it was built, I was told. And I'm just amazed by the color of it too. It just seems like the green is something different than anywhere else. It was a short visit there before we took the bus down the steep mountain road to our hotel in Aguas Calientes. to rest up before our next day visit back to Machu Picchu. In 1911, there's some history, Hiram Bingham, a Yale professor, was looking for the lost city of Vilcabamba that was built by the Inca governors in 1529 when the Incas were invaded by the Spaniards. Instead, Hiram Bingham was led to a city under Machu Picchu by an Incan boy. No one knows the name of the actual city that was found there. The views were spectacular of the city that we were allowed to see thanks to his discovery 100 years earlier. Machu Picchu is 7,952 feet above sea level. We took lots of pictures and we'll show you some and highlight a few. That again is Machu Picchu. These are the city. And this is in 2011. I think it's a little different today. We were wandering around a lot. The Inca used a dry masonry method to construct their buildings. Without mortar, they fit the large stones so tightly together that nothing could get between them. And there was a difference between, the buildings of the royalty and the workers. The research suggests that the Incas carved this immense sacred stone following the shape of the Pumasilla Mountain located behind the rock and in the distance. You can see the comparison. That's the sculpture and that's the mountains in the back. The Intihuatana is a solar clock carved in a single block of stone. Its corners are aligned with the 4 cardinal points, and it's one of the points that emit energy. And if you had a dog, north and south. Known as the stone that radiates energy, people visiting the Inca city of Machu Picchu will lay their hands on the stone and feel the incredible energy that radiates. At the present time, you are not allowed to touch it because it's cordoned off and forbidden. So they're holding their hands above it, they feel the energy. If you want to stop it. So this, no, you just had to push it. We'll play it again.
Sorry, guys.
Go back. Let's put it there. Now up on Wenonah, I think if you look close enough, there's a trail up there that you can see where people will climb up.
Oh my God.
So this is the Temple of the Condor. It's one of the most iconic temples located within the city. The Inca took the natural formation as part of the mountain and managed to make this living rock resemble the open wings of a giant Andean condor. I got a chance to walk around here on my own while the rest of them were eating lunch. I didn't want to give up an hour of my time, so I just decided to walk through the city. And I took some videos. That I believe represents the beak of the condor. And one of the wings. You just wonder what went through their minds when they did all this. In the roofless mortar room, there were water mirrors. They were filled with water from the sacred lakes and rivers. The mirrors of the water reflected the sky where the Inca's gods rise, the sun, the moon, and the stars. So it was sort of like a telescope, something to observe the constellations of the sky. Here's a lizard, one of the few animals we saw. The Temple of the Sun is located in the high part and in the religious sector of Machu Picchu. And below the temple, it is thought that this was the royal princess's tomb. At least that's what they called it. A few steps away are the important buildings such as the main square, the royal tomb, or the house of the Inca. No lizard. This is our guy talking about the plants, and he mentions the cocoa plant, but I don't know where it is, if we actually seen it.
We have this other organism before. You want to see the coca plant? Look at this.
These are just scenes of the city. Donna was posing on this stone, which we believe could have been a sacrificial stone. She didn't know it at the time, but. Anyone make this a little louder? Let's see. Okay.
Evidences that these people, locals, were taking out part of the gold to Cusco, where there was an Italian family called Romerini who were buying this stuff in order to keep them for their private collection. Evidence, very important one to know that there was gold here. These families started cleaning up mainly the farming sector because they were more interested in farming. They didn't know how much of Machu Picchu was covered by vegetation on that other side. They had no tools, nothing else to keep cleaning up the vegetation. So the big he found it already discovered the first, because he made a family down there. Because when he came, he made two families here. One of them was of Toribio Richardes, the other one was an Anacleto Alvarez family. So these people were living not necessarily there, neither here in these houses. So some other shelters down below the terraces nearby this area. So Bingham took a lot of locals, farmers, to work in this expedition. When he found Machu Picchu, he realized that was already discovered. This person carried out that expedition in order to look for Picus, that other city that he was more interested to find in this expedition. When he went, or when he got to Vilcabamba, he found Picus. It was already explored. He said, oh, so I must go back to Machu Picchu because there's so healing the nature. So, of course, he didn't know that here. In that other city, I wanted to work there because he was working. To be honest. No?
That was Carlos, our guide, talking. I know he's hard to understand, but I just felt that, it was something that makes you feel like you get the impression that you're there with us as he's going through the history of Machu Picchu. And you could hear some words like Villacambra and Hiram Bingham, so that's basically what he was talking about. This is the train, the Machu Picchu train. To return to Cusco, we took this train. It has lots of large windows, and even in the roof of the train where we can view the scenery. So in 2011,
Andy, could you have taken the train up?
yes, we found that out. We could have avoided the whole Inca Trail, and just took the train. Which, if we ever do it again, that's probably what we'll do.
Donna, was that where you put him in the hospital?
It was my idea.
I just went along with it.
Oh, my God.
So in 2011, the world seemed different than it is today. I mean, just look around, we're all wearing masks and we're all vaccinated and boosted. A trip to Peru wasn't as expensive. And plane travel was easier than it is today. You can walk around easier and freer. So thanks for letting us share our trip. We love visiting Peru, hiking and camping in the Andes Mountains. And like we said before, we would do it again, but we'd probably take the train. And there are many sources of information about Machu Picchu. I didn't, explain too many things. But basically, our knowledge of the Inca Trail hike came after our experience of exploring, one of the most beautiful and interesting wonders of the world. So that's it. I tried to.
Thank you.
If there's any questions, we can try to answer them.
Andy,
Yes,
so you had about 8 people in your group
7 people.
and about 8 porters?
12.
Yeah,
12 porters.
the porters were great. They did all the work for us.
So that's 20 people, and then you said there was at least one more large group coming behind you.
Oh, there were
So
5.
I'm curious what the porters were doing with all the human waste.
Well, we weren't allowed to drink the water, and we weren't allowed to even go in the water that was behind us, so we don't know. But they did have like
An outhouse.
an outhouse.
Tent.
As far as like what, how they carried it, I believe they took it out with them. But,
Yeah, they carried it out. They had
Yeah.
a tent, bathroom with a tent. And we do know that one time one of the guys, they were told, that was carrying it, not our group, fell off the mountain.
Oh, geez.
So anyway, yeah.
Well, I mention that because I know when, about 10 years ago, my wife and I did a trip in Alaska with whitewater rafts in the wilderness area. There, you were required to use a groover, which is basically an army ammunition box for all the solids. And then urine, you just did it in the landscape, and the solids had to come out of the trip with you. And I wondered if, it would almost seem to me they would almost have to do something like that with the volume of people that are going up into those areas.
Yeah, they did. They carried
Yeah.
everything out. We did know
Yeah.
that. So
Did
we
they-
did.
When you urinated, did you urinate in that same place? Okay, I'm just curious, because that's like harder to deal with, like the volume of urine is.
and this was like 2011 too. I don't know when you went to Alaska.
2010 probably.
Yeah, so. But like I said, with those containers
Right.
with the water and everything, they used clean water because the water just wasn't safe to drink.
So
And they didn't want you to like wash your hands and then.
But they weren't carrying the water up there, presumably they're using local water and then treating it.
No, they were carrying
there was a
around.
lot of water bottles.
The-
Every day they gave us water bottles.
Hard for me
And you
to
see how
imagine.
small those porters look, but they would carry those big backpacks and everything else on their backs. And it would, they can carry twice their weight. Hi, yeah.
Does Machu Picchu ever get snow-capped at any time period?
Oh, Machu Picchu? Not while we were there, but that was in May, so.
But they're opposite us, so we were in the fall. May was in the fall, so they do close it down, I think in February, for the weather and for repairs. Because it was on one bridge that we didn't really show it. There had been a landslide, and they just stuck a bridge on the side, like push. It was really scary. And anytime you saw a railing, very rarely, but you figured that's where someone went over. Because they said like 8 people a year usually die or something. Oh, I know. They don't advertise that, but when you're there, you learn like that.
Yeah, and our trip wasn't over when this ended too, because after we went back to Cusco, our guide took us to the Sacred City,
Secret Valley.
Sacred Valley, which had another series of ruins to go through. And then we saw the people there. I mean, we have a whole bunch of those pictures too.
But you're lucky we didn't take that.
But
How did you do with the altitude, and did the cocoa leaves help at all?
the cocoa leaves help, but would help for us, Donna, because we know people that didn't take the medication before they went, and they were sick when they got
The
it.
one guy that went with us,
Well, we
strapping,
stayed away from that.
big guy. He was strong. I think he was allergic to the drug.
Oh.
So he couldn't take the drug in advance like we did. We started a few days there. One of the days, he was so sick, just vomiting. He was just awful because of the altitude sickness.
Well,
But
we
he
didn't-
got,
we didn't
got
feel-
over it. And I think it must have been the second day when we were up so high that it really got him. And then after that, he was okay. But
And the only other thing that affected us was like the water. Basically, we went to a restaurant, we were very careful about not drinking the water, except a few of us got salad, and they washed the salad.
we were told it was safe, but it wasn't. We don't
Yeah.
know.
I think that was at that Australian restaurant.
No, not there.
It wasn't there.
It was in Agua Caliente at the end. It was luckily at the end of our trip. Yeah, that would have been horrible on the trip. So, having problems there. We also discovered hand wipes and hand sanitizer way before COVID. We carried so much of it, especially the girls. We were just crazy because they said if you touch a rock, you can get sick. So we were constantly washing our hands because of all the, it's not that it's bad stuff, but it's bad for us because we've not experienced it. And we did learn from the Australian guy who lived there for many years and had children. He said, unless you've lived in Peru before the age of 5, you never get used to the bacteria and stuff that's there, because he still could not drink the water after years of living there. But his children could because they were born there.
How did you sleep at night up at that altitude?
I think I fell asleep immediately.
It was very tiring.
I mean, I did not have, I liked to camp, so I didn't have a problem. But we were so tired, all of us.
And did I hear you went there before? Or?
No, just got like to go there.
It really, just the scenery to me, and the flowers. And I know I took a lot of pictures of flowers, everyone. But the guide found, one of the porters that was with us realized that I was taking pictures, so he showed me every flower. Dandelions, everything. Oh my God, he was so proud when he would find a flower to show it to me. And then he'd get me to pose, and I had to take a picture of it. So,
And if this does wind up on the YouTube channel, maybe you want to identify the flowers and let us know what they are.
The green terraces there, they have brick, or they have the stone wall in front? Is that what we're looking at?
yeah,
Yes.
they farmed like that. They farmed on the terraces for water, and so that it didn't, there weren't avalanches, the landslides and things like that wouldn't happen. So they did a lot of terracing.
Right. The agriculture was, well thought out back then, because I think they did do terrace farming.
And I think the Incas were only in power for 100 years, like 1400 to the 1500s. Yet they did so much. I mean, we just saw a fraction of the cities that they had in the mountains. And just to be in the mountains and build that without tools. And they never found a wheel. They never invented, the
And I
wheel
don't think they
wasn't up there.
had written language either.
No, they didn't have written language.
So it's one of those, like Eric likes to do these programs about the history and the Incas and the mysticism of the Incas. I think it'll be well worth to look into that.
What were they growing? What were they farming?
What was what?
What kind of things do they farm?
Oh, I don't know, but I've never seen so many different kinds of potato dishes. They have so many, we see 5 different kinds of potatoes at our grocery store. There were 50 different kinds of potatoes at their farmer's market that we went to. And they also had, the porters had all these diet restrictions. Our group, one was a vegetarian, one couldn't eat onions, which they use a lot of, I found. One couldn't, so they made everything individualized for us. They were really nice, and nothing was really good, honestly. They baked Auntie and I a cake, which we had for our anniversary. At the time, it was like our 30th anniversary. So they baked a cake in the mountains, and that's a big deal. The guy with the funny hat on, he did all that kind of stuff. So he made that hat himself and the vest and everything. So.
Was there water near there? I mean, this is really high. Did it have to go down like really deep?
They had irrigation. So I don't know how, but they had, you could see, we didn't put everything.
Yeah.
They had like dripping water where it would go funnel through. They were amazing.
Some of the videos I didn't put in showed that. They had it's like a sluice thing, and just let me see the
All
water
through
going
the,
through.
through the city and
Why,
run
why,
off.
why would the water be contaminated, that beautiful mountain water? Why would it be dangerous?
There's germs there that we're not used to, our body isn't used to.
So when it hit the ground, then it becomes contaminated.
Right.
And the only other thing is, some of us got sick at the very end of the thing. Here's what we saw. The last day, the porters were washing our dishes in the stream. We were hoping that that was the last day, but we're like, oh, we were all freaking out. We're like, oh my God, and then they've been doing this the whole time, because we were afraid to touch the water on anything. And,
Yeah, one of our members in our group was like, always like, he was running real fast to get ahead of
He was
us.
18 or 21 or something.
Yeah, and the other one was running real fast to get ahead of us to go to the bathroom.
And
He
full
was really
disclosure,
good.
the first day, I was doing really well, I thought. And then I came around the mountain, I was by myself, and these 3 horses ran right at me. And I think they told us to stay close to them, and that was when the big drop was there. But it was big enough for horses to run. The guide sees me a little while later, and he says, how am I doing? And I said, I think I'm going to die on this mountain. He thought I was afraid. He talks it over with Andy to send me back for the first day. She's so afraid she's going to die. But, you know, I joked. He took it literally. And so he was going to send me back, and the young kid wouldn't let, who we had known since he was 10 years old, he said, we're not letting her get sent back. And I don't know any of this. And so that was the first night. Then we found out, they talked to us, we had to leave a little earlier.
To prove ourselves that we could do
And
it.
then, we didn't know it, but they were timing how long it was going to take. And we got to this point, and the porter had to call back and say, we're here, and then we made it. We passed, we weren't going too slow.
Andy, I have to come back to the bathroom again. So like, you know, if I'm out hiking, over in Pennsylvania mountains, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, I just go up the trail and urinate. Is that what people did? Or did they have like a tent set up so?
I wish we have a picture of, basically it was an outhouse, a tenant's outhouse. And
I don't know what the men did, the women did.
But as you're hiking along during the day, surely like not every hour or 2 or 3
You didn't
hours
drink
you're
much.
setting
I
that
didn't drink
tent up.
much.
You know, I honestly don't remember going to the bathroom that much. Like, it wasn't like I had to go. Maybe it was the stuff they fed us, but
There was also.
It was only 3 days, 4 days. So.
There were a few places, the camp areas, where they had these disgusting, where you put your feet, you stand somewhere,
Yes,
and get those things. We had a private tent with our group, so we didn't have a problem there. And like I said, the porters did all the hard stuff. They were great. And when you say goodbye, you tip them. And I can't talk about something on camera, but later I could privately tell someone something. Anyway, we had a really nice time. And the thing is, when we were introduced to the porters, they didn't speak English, and some of them barely spoke Spanish. And I had practiced Spanish. None of them spoke Spanish, so they had little speeches prepared for each one of them. And one of them at the end said his age, and he was 58.
Wow.
At the time, I was 57. And so I figured I was the oldest one on the whole mountain. But he was older, so I said something about being older. I mean, he's older than me. And the guide who'd been pushing me along, get moving, Donna, get moving, even though it wasn't a race. I said, I'm a year younger than him, thank goodness. And then he said to me, I'd love him for this, I didn't know you were that old. much nicer to me from then on. I guess I was his mom's age or something. He was so much nicer when he found out that I was older. Because our other group, the other two couples were in their 40s, and there was a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a lot. He didn't have any trouble. He walked it twice, because Andy would walk ahead, and then he'd walk back to find me, and then they'd have to walk again.
You didn't have any trouble, Andy, but when that first time you played the audio, I could hear you breathing.
Oh, yeah, I think the altitude, did affect you.
Uphill was terrible, downhill I was fine.
Yeah.
And no, actually it wasn't fine, because all the steps were broken. I don't think there was one step that wasn't broken in the whole area.
I can't believe somebody didn't break their ankle, to be honest with you. Look at those
Well, see,
steps.
I had like maybe 20 ankle sprains
Oh.
in my youth. I was so careful, and when I got to the 14,000 feet area, I was terrified because it was tall. I'm also afraid of heights.
Yeah.
But somebody said something about a bucket list, and it wasn't really on our bucket list. It was just something that just happened. And,
We've been at a funeral,
yeah.
and
That's where-
one of our friends our age had just died.
Oh.
And that's when I ran into her, who was going, and she taught, and I thought, you know what? We may as well, before, and put away for another 12 years.
So I just had a quick, like, Sean has her hand up. Does anybody else have
Just two quick questions. Now, was this an organized, like, tour group, how to book it? And the second being, like, I'm thinking of logistics, where did you fly out of to there to get to the point where you were at your tents? Like, meet up with a hiking group?
You only can hike the Inca Trail with a group. There's no more, I just decided to backpack
Somebody
and do
was
that.
recommended to you?
Our friend researched it,
Okay.
and she wanted a leisurely trip. A lot of them do it in 3 days, where they get up at like 6 a.m. the last morning and run to the sun gate. We didn't. We took our time and got to the sun gate, like I said, when it was empty.
Right.
Everybody had left, and it was wonderful to do that. Because if you could see some of the pictures, there were a lot of people. But they limit to only so many people a day on the groups. But most of them had like 20 people or so on these hikes.
So they were based there, but.
Yeah, it was,
Was there a representative up here somewhere, or?
No,
just
she
everything online?
just did the research. We just went along for the ride. She said, you call up this place and, pay your money. And then we flew to New York. We drove to New York.
And then
Because
flew from there
it had to be
to.
half the price, to Lima.
Okay.
And then then you were there for a short time and then flew to Cusco. And Lima is like along the coast, and so it's pretty low, sea
So it was
level.
really 2 flights, and then you were at the place
We're
where you
at,
pick up
and
your.
then you take a bus,
Okay.
or was it, we just, because ours was a small group, so we just took a little van to where you started, where that bridge was.
Yeah, we said before, we stayed in Cusco because their altitude is higher than Machu Picchu, and that's how you acclimate yourself to. So we've been, we got like actually 2 vacations. The vacation in Cusco was a nice,
Yeah, I would
Enjoy
recommend
yourself.
that.
And then
we did the train there.
we did spend a day in Aguas Calientes, which was like just a little tourist town.
And they have hot springs, but we didn't get to go there, we didn't have enough time.
Yeah. And then the next day they took
And
us.
if you really want to spend money, supposedly there's a beautiful lodge right at the entrance of Machu Picchu. It's very expensive, but it's supposed to be really exclusive and really nice. We didn't stay there.
How long was the train ride?
A couple hours. Yeah.
And
They
they
had
did-
entertainment, they food, they fed you on the train. Really gourmet, fancy food. It wasn't, a hamburger. No potatoes, there weren't any potatoes. And then they had entertainment, and then they tried to sell you different scarves and products like that on the train. So, but, it made it go by fast. I don't think it's more than an hour or maybe 2 there.
So when you were on the buses, were the roads pretty hairy on the
The
map?
worst part of the trip was the switchback
Yeah.
from up and down, from Machu Picchu down to the town. It's just all switchbacks, and they're big buses, and only buses are allowed on it. but sometimes 2 buses came.
Oh.
And one would have to, we don't know how they didn't go over the side. There has to be 50 that go over the side every week.
And there's no railing, huh?
There's nothing.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was the scary part. So you,
Yeah,
of
that's.
course, that was after the way down, I was just so exhausted that I didn't care. You know, I don't know what the next day going up, that's when you really got the views, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, this is what we.
That was frightening, you know, so.
You said some of the guides didn't speak Spanish. What language do they speak?
Quechua. Starts with a Q. Right. And we
But
probably
they
don't
did speak-
pronounce most of the
speak
words properly.
Spanish too, I think that's what, they spoke Spanish too.
No, they didn't.
I mean, the people,
Oh, no, a lot of the people did, but the guides were Indian from the mountains, and they really did it. A couple of them maybe had a few words and they tried to communicate, but mostly they didn't really have conversations with us. They were too busy carrying our stuff.
the biggest conversation was in the morning at our tents when they would come in and knock on the tent and says, tea, because they would give you tea to start.
Ours was like a 5.
And the cocoa teas, the cocoa plant, of course, when you come back, if you had to do any kind of drug testing, you would probably be tested negative with that. Yeah.
So are the porters walking with you on the trail? They're ahead of you?
They're behind us, and then they pass you.
And then he set everything up.
And
I was
then-
going to say, so that they've set up, the camp is established when you arrive.
When we arrive. Yeah, they start out with us.
And then they send
They
you off in
pass
the
us.
morning, and then they clean up after you've left?
And then they pass
And then
us
they-
again. Well, everybody passed me. I want
Okay.
everyone on the
But
mountain, just so everyone
Understood.
knows.
The guide is
I'm
at
trying to cover in
Yeah, the guide is at the back of us.
The effort that they put.
Oh, it's just amazing. I double tipped them for a reason that I won't even tell you about on camera, because I was told not to ever talk about it by the guide. But the porters are freaking amazing. And they're little guys, and they used to be treated so terribly, from what we understand, by the tour groups, because they didn't pay them enough. But now they have all these regulations. I don't know whether they have unions, but something like a union, and they are treated really well. All of them had clothes. Our guys were kind of sloppy looking, but they had nice uniforms, but they saved them. But some of the other ones would go by, see the blue group, see the red group, the orange group, and everybody that walked by said, "Hi, Donna." Everyone passed them, every single person. And then the other guides were told to keep an eye out on us. And, because they had a porter with me, but still. The one guy would say, every time you go past, it was only 4 days, "Donna, there's a beer for you at the end." And the young kids would say, "We wish our mothers were this brave." It made me feel older and older. But anyway, we did have a lot of fun interacting with the other groups, because we did get to meet them all. Not everyone does. And he was so patient, waiting for me, as you can hear. And the steps going down were, going up was really hard, because the altitude. Like, I walked 10 steps and then I'd rest. And I walked 10 steps. But coming down, every single step you had to look. That's why I didn't see many birds. There weren't, I'm sure they were up there, but I looked down for a lot of it. And I did take a lot of flower pictures, so I was slower. That's the excuse that I'm using.
Yeah, and she didn't know that she was going to get thrown out.
I didn't know about that until a
And
couple of days.
Carlos had asked me, "Well, do you want to tell her?" I said, "No, you want to tell her."
Because I wasn't afraid. I was just, joking about it. Oh, and then he had a radio, the guide, and he calls me over and he said, "Donna, listen to this." He puts it in my ears, and they're singing the song, "Oh, Donna." He said, "The first person I ever met for this song." So it was, he spoke several languages. You could hear his English wasn't real clear, but he also spoke, I think, French and German, so he could, you know, see other tour guides and tours.
And she's still, she's in touch with him through Facebook.
Yeah, I see him on Facebook.
Oh, nice.
So.
Good program.
Yeah.